お母さんまだかい？うん。けどな、お前お母さんやりたけまだいいよ。
Yeah, kid, you should be lucky. Most Toku parents are dead. Well, that kid's gonna need years of therapy.
レストラントレーニング場を見たやつは死ぬのだ。
殺されてたまるか。貴様たちを警察に訴えてやる。
Ooh, the police? Ooh, I'm so sure Destron is quaking in fear now.
ちょうどいい距離だ。俺のブーメランを受けてみろ。
Ah, would that I could have that sound to lull me to sleep each night.
この暗号解くには時間がかかるな。今夜一晩これを借りていっていいですか？
ええ。
その人私の本当のお父さんじゃないの。
何を言うんだミミ。
Hey, I know that guy. He's from Mothra vs. Godzilla. Remember to click like, subscribe, the bell notification, and whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support us. What's up, everybody? I am the Kaiju no Kami from the Toku and Animation News Network, and today I'm taking a look at Discotek's Blu-ray release of Kamen Rider V3. Hey, I just realized that the cover is probably jacked up in the green screen. In the final episode of Kamen Rider, Hongo and Ichimonji confronted the Great Shocker leader, unmasking him Scooby-Doo style.
Like, wow! It's Mr. Ellsworth, the scoreboard operator!
Not quite, Shaggy, but it's someone Mr. Prentice will remember.
What? Bender, one of my old coaches.
And then he fell over, blowing up the entire base, signaling the end of Gale Shocker, or so it seemed. There were multiple ideas circling in the heads of Toei, showrunner Masaru Igami, among others on how to proceed with the show. Initially, they were going to make FBI agent Taki Kamen Rider 3 and have him become the main star of the show, only to scrap those plans and repurpose episodes 99 and 100 into the premiere for their next series. The name of this next iteration became Kamen Rider V3 for version 3. Also, the producers felt V3 made the name more interesting compared to just calling it Kamen Rider 3, and thus, Igami began writing a brand new series, kicking off Kamen Rider's tradition of changing titles and themes on a consistent basis. Kind of. They also hired newcomer Hiroshi Miyauchi, who got his start from a show called Key Hunter a few years prior to V3, to take on the role of the lead hero having to confront Gale Shocker's successor, Destron. Everyone who is familiar with Gold Ranger, Jacka, and Old Ranger should recognize Miyauchi. Was Kamen Rider V3 a change of pace from its predecessor, or was it just more of the same? Watch to find out. The Heroes. The newest addition to the Kamen Rider family is Shiro Kazumi. When our show begins, Shiro witnesses a murder, which immediately sees the culprit trying to silence him with killer coffee. Jeez, it's not bad enough coffee already tastes like bitter hatred, but now you have to add murder to it? The plot fails, alerting Hongo and Ichimonji of the situation, who try to protect Shiro. Unfortunately, Shiro's family is murdered before him. He begs the Rider duo to cyberize him into a third Kamen Rider so he can avenge his loved ones. They reluctantly do so and appear to die in battle. Apparently, killing Hongo and Ichimonji scarred children so badly it was eventually retconned that they were not dead. They only faked their deaths in order to infiltrate Destron facilities in other countries without them knowing about it. Even back then, Kamen Riders were faking their deaths. It seems a bit convoluted, but sure, why not? Either way, Shiro is left to defend Japan alone, at least as a masked hero. He is assisted by Tachibana and the Junior Rider Squad, which has grown quite significantly as it seems like practically every child character in this series is part of the Rider Squad.
ライダー大本部東京東部地区ナンバー820工藤健二。うわー、いい景色。僕あっち行って見てくる。ほらこれ。
なんです
少年ライダー隊応答願います。
This includes the lead child character of the show, Shigeru Tama, played by Hideki Kawaguchi. Kawaguchi has also been seen in Spectre-Man, Kikaider, and Jiro in Return of Ultraman.
うまいぞ。
これがあれば僕たち少年ライダー隊になってデストロンが過ぎますね。
Shigeru is essentially the series version of Goro and is the main communicator between the Junior Squad and Shiro.
少年ライダー隊玉茂です。デストロンがこの四国を狙ってるんだ。だからぜひ君たちの力を借りたいんだ。デストロンのアジトが必ずどっかにあるはずだ。
His sister, Junko, replaces the rotating cheerleader trio from the original series. Junko is rescued by Shiro at the very start of the series and instantly falls in love with him. For a while, she tries to win his affections, but he is too busy playing the loner bit to care, ultimately friend-zoning her.
一つだけお願いがあります。僕の周りには一切近づかない。あなたのためだ。
It was nice to have one female lead compared to the previous show, especially when you consider how useless the girls tended to be. It streamlines having to write scripts for 3 people into one, which also meant they got all of the screen time to themselves rather than trying to keep track of which girl had what personality. I also liked how she only occasionally got captured as opposed to it happening in almost every episode. Alternatively, Junko isn't given much to do in the episodes that don't have her getting into trouble, so it's a twofold standard.
ダータイの玉純子、今からお前を万事教の神の生贄に捧げる。と苦しんで死んでいくのだ。
The most notable episodes revolving around Junko is when some psycho obsessed with her informs her that Shiro is V3 to scare her away from him.
あなたは仮面ライダーなの ?V3 なの私、あなたがたとえ V3 だったとしても、それならなおさらあなたに。
純子さん、俺の目的はただ一つ。デストロンを倒し、世の中に平和を取り戻すこと。
And when that doesn't work, he kidnaps her to be his bride after he is turned into a Destron mutant.
Nah, that's not right.
Here comes the queen. Hey, that a scream.
Nah, that's not right.
赤いベールはデストロンの花嫁。
Nah, that's not. Oh, actually.
これはデストロンの結婚指輪だ。これをはめれば、お前は嫌でもデストロンになる。姿ばかりか。 心まで醜いデストロンとなってリルモグラの妻となるのだ。
Actress Hizuru Ono did a fine job as Junko, even if she isn't the greatest character. Whereas the designs for Ichigo and Nigo were based on grasshoppers and had darker suits with red highlights, V3's design is based on a dragonfly and utilizes white, red, and a brighter green, making it more favorable to children. It's also said the design was inspired by rugby players, while the green was based on a jumper and editor of Kodansha magazine wore. Shiro transforms using the double typhoon on his belt, which are a pair of fans representing Ichigo and Nigo. Speaking of Ichigo and Nigo, their bikes were called the Cyclones, so it's only fitting that V3's is the Hurricane. Like before, he pretty much has any ability needed to defeat the monster of the week, but it feels a lot more natural this time around as they establish very early on that he is discovering his own capabilities and weaknesses. What also helps is Shiro has a great personality that is more in line with the cocky charisma of Ichimonji, even though he does have the stupidity of Hongo mixed in every now and then. Speaking of whom, in the late team-up episodes between the 3 riders, Hongo yet again walks right into a Destron trap while Ichimonji thought before he leaped.
動物教の呪いの人形ですよ。
呪いの人形？
どうします？ダイアン・ドガヌペン。
おかしい。二人とも下がっててください。
I really feel like people just blatantly ignore the shortcomings of Hongo just because he was the first. Tachibana is the same as he was in the last series, though this time he is traded in his bike and snack shops for a sporting goods store being the decoy for Rider headquarters. It's a bit weird to have this storefront as a cover for their base of operations when Destron seems to know this right from the start. Anytime they want to lure Shiro away, they just send someone over to leave a message for him or something.
この花輪の依頼人はどんな男だ。おい、
待ってください。確か住所の一回が。
It's quite ridiculous. I do like how they have upgraded from pigeons to radio communication.
少年ライダー隊本部です。
上北チームの隊員です。怪しい通信が入りました。練馬地区にも入っています。本部聞こえました。城南地区です。品川地区も聞こえます。
There is a secondary hero who appears in the last 10 episodes, Riderman. Riderman was originally a Destron scientist named Joji Yuki. Joji was an orphan who was adopted by Destron's great leader and raised to be one of their leading scientists. One of Destron's generals is quite jealous of this and decides Joji is a threat to the organization and orders his execution. Joji loses his arm before being rescued by his cohorts. They operate on him, giving him a robotic arm and the ability to transform into Riderman.
ジョージはこのマスクをつけることによってライダーマンとなり手術した腕が電動し アタッチメントを操ることができるのである。
As Riderman, he is able to switch out his hand for additional attachments such as a rope with a grappling hook, a curved blade, and a drill. Given how much Riderman has been advertised in every promotional material I have seen for this series, I really expected him to show up sooner than episode 43. In fact, I was totally expecting this Interpol agent named Ken, who became a reoccurring character, to be Riderman, only for that dude to drop off the face of the show as if he was a nobody. Granted, he did end up being a nobody because he amounted to nothing, but still. I do like the concept of a former villain scientist being the next hero. I just wish there was more build up for it since, as I said, it felt like they were leaning towards Ken being Riderman. Anyway, Joji is confused on where he wants to go in life. He feels betrayed by Destron, often getting in Shiro's way of defeating them. Sometimes out of vengeance, other times for his blind loyalty towards the great leader. Yet he wants to be a hero just like Shiro.
今は個人の目的で戦う場合か。行け。
It's an intriguing concept that would be carried over into the Heisei era when a secondary rider would become a mainstay. Sadly, actor Takahisa Yamaguchi died of liver cancer in 1986. The villains. For being called Destron, there seems to be a serious lack of Megatron, Soundwave, Starscream, and the like. In all seriousness, my problem with Destron is they are pretty much just Shocker 3.0.
デストロンは常に完全を要求する。
Right.
Their great leader is basically just Goro Naya's voice again, as his physical forms we see every now and then are just fake outs.
お前の手術を行った中原博士の心には動揺が感じられる。デストロン組織にとってマイナスともなりかねん。まずあの中原を消せ。
The generals come and go, the monsters are all cyborgs based on plants and animals. The biggest difference is how several of the generals have their own themes to the Destron mutants this time around. The first half of the Destron mutants are a combination of an organic being fused with some sort of technological device. For example, there's Scissors Jaguar, Razor Starfish, Mantis Meringue, Pickaxe Shark, among others. mutants are typically under the command of Dr. G. Dr. G is your first general archetype. He makes an impressionable first appearance before proceeding to do practically nothing until his grand finale.
お前の技は効かん。
Jotaro Senba's presence is far more intimidating than his character.
千万東京都民を一人残らずミイラにしてやる。
The second general to appear looks like he is about ready to rip some hearts out while fighting Indiana Jones. This is Baron Tusk, played by A.G. Go.
まずお前たちが殺人光学スモッグの洗礼を受けるのだ。この特殊光線のスイッチを入れればお前たちはたちまちもだいしな。
Tusk has come to Japan from Africa, and a lot of his monsters are animals with large teeth, such as Skull Boar, Snow Wolf, and one who caused the great leader to reveal his sexist nature.
騎馬族の母なる魔女スミロドーム。
騎馬男爵三人の仮面ライダーは手強いぞ。騎馬一族の魔女とはいえ女で相手ができるのか。
Baron Tusk is my favorite of all the generals, as I love the witch doctor motif he has going on while also having a kick-ass theme.
生贄を捧げるのだ。
Next is Archbishop Wing, portrayed by Sachio Fujino.
翼大僧正の翼軍団は世界に恐れるもののない最強軍団。
Wing brings with him from Tibet a swarm of winged mutants. This includes a condor,
地上に落ちて死ね
and a moth, who is actually named Mothra.
おお、来たか。殺人毒ガーラ。
The final general hailing from Mongolia is Martial Armor.
俺の名はデストロン大官。鎧元帥だ。鎧元帥。
He lasts the longest of the post-Dr. G trio, with a lot of his themes belonging to shelled creatures. It makes sense, as his armor is based on a crayfish. Armor is also the one who Joji vows vengeance against, as he feared Joji would eventually outrank him. Stuntman Bunya Boon Nakamura brings his talents to armor.
デストロンにつべこべ言うやつは生かしてはおかん。今度こそ地獄の苦しみを味わいながら死んでもらう。
A few of his mutants include a snail and a tortoise.
プリスリー行くぞ。
For some reason, they felt the need to also bring back the 4 Shocker generals. I am unsure as to why, given they only last 2 episodes and do absolutely nothing but bicker amongst each other.
ドクトルゲイに代わってデストロンの指揮を取れとのご命令かな。
何をバカなことを。あり得る話だ。
内輪もめはやめろ。
They should have saved their return for the movie, as it probably would have felt more epic. They don't even die on screen, rather off screen in an explosion.
何見ておれ。ブリスリーめ。
Like those 4 generals, each of the new ones have their own mutant form they utilize before they go out. Dr. G is a crab.
俺の本当の姿をよく見ろ。ドクトルゲイの正体はカニレーザー。
Tusk is a mammoth.
騎馬大爵。騎馬大 晩酌の正体は吸血マンモス。
Wing a bat.
マガキックで羽を折られた。翼大総長。
And of course, armor is a crayfish. I have to hand it to the show. I really like the designs to all of the villains. The grunts are simply called Destron Combatmen. They look almost identical to the final version of the Shocker Combatmen, just with the skeleton of a scorpion being on their costumes. Well, there is nothing really special to speak about them. I did find their training session in one episode quite amusing. The effects and music. The effects are a vast improvement over its predecessor, while the music is pretty much the same. The production values on V3's suit are better than the Ichigo and Nigo suits. There's also a lot more explosions going on, which was at the request of Miyuchi, as he wanted as many explosions as possible. Even his bike stunts were a step up from what was done in the past, requiring Toei to use a 750cc bike as opposed to a 251 in order for Miyauchi to do his henshin pose while the bike was in motion.
Henshin!
It is reported that this terrified the show's director as he kept having flashbacks to Fujioka being injured during a stunt 2 years prior. Camera work and fight choreography remained stellar. One of my favorite fights took place in a cemetery. Episode 49 also had some outstanding camera bits after Shiro has been hit by a bullet that is messing with his mind.
不思議だ。あれは幻だったのか。いや、確かに俺は何かの衝撃を受けて倒れた。夢じゃない。俺は生きているんだ。
On the other hand, I feel like I'm gonna throw up. We also have this sequence of the trio, which was pretty badass. Kikuchi returned for the show's soundtrack and would continue doing the Showa era of Kamen Rider until Black. My only concern with the music, despite being good, is how much of it is just recycled from Kamen Rider. Fortunately, Kikuchi did use some new tracks that gave V3 a sense of its own identity, with my new favorite being this one. Although, I really did enjoy hearing this piece again. Miyauchi sings the opening song, Taki Kamen Rider V3, with the band The Swingers. It's an okay opening song that sets me in the mood for the show, but I can't say it is the least bit memorable. Definitely nowhere near the catchiness of Let's Go Rider Kick. Meanwhile, there are two closing songs, with the first, Shonen Kamen Rider Tai no Uta, being featured in episodes 1 to 42. This somber and average closing was sung by Ichiro Mizuki with the assistance of Otowa and Columbia Yurikago. Masato Shimon returned to sing Hashire Hurricane with Columbia for V3's final 10 episodes. It's a fine ending too. Neither song is terrible, just not really my cup of tea. The episodes. V3 was a step up in the storytelling department over Kamen Rider. It's a bit more story driven, even if the villains receive little to no character development. I do like how we get to see Shiro's family be killed before us rather than just being told they are dead. It adds a layer of personality to his characterization compared to Hongo and Ichimonji. Furthermore, many of the episode plots revolve around two-parters, something that has been a staple of the modern era of Kamen Rider. I also found it a nice change of pace with the way the Destron mutants are utilized. Sometimes one would be featured in the first half, with a new one showing up at the very end of that episode to become the main threat in the second part. Other times, the two monsters would team up with each other, with the occasional duo that features just one mutant. Then we had another change of the formula, as the episodes featuring Baron Tusk and Archbishop Wing would often be single episode stories with an overarching plot. V3 definitely had a lot of variety to it, which was a nice change of pace, as the show initially felt like it was more of the same after coming off of the original series. The ending also didn't piss me off as badly as it did with Kamen Rider, even though it kind of ends in the same manner. The difference is here it actually felt like the show was wrapping up, while there it just stopped. Obviously, being it was planned to continue on originally, it makes sense. Still, that doesn't mean I am going to forgive how poorly written it was. Here with V3 though, it was like, oh, okay, so the great leader has blasted off again and will return in the next series. There were only a handful of episodes I disliked, but the one I disdained the most was 39's Terror of the Carnivorous Fauna, Bashogan. A boy and his older sister are in a plant museum when one of the plants reveals itself to be a Destron mutant and kidnaps the sister. The boy is distraught, and Junko and Shigeru try to help him. Shiro assists them when they take the kid home and learn his sister is the one who is raising him, as their parents are dead. The kid hands Shiro a toy, who promises to return it after he has found his sister.
お兄ちゃん、僕のパンダちゃんあげるから、お姉ちゃん見つけて。
The first biggest issue is this is the exact same plot as Kamen Rider's 4th episode. It is a beat-for-beat copy of that one. I understand Toei likes to reuse the same scripts, but they could have at least changed it up enough so it didn't feel like plagiarism. It gets better though. This episode occurs in the middle of Archbishop Wing's arc. Let me just repeat that. It occurs during Archbishop Wing's arc. Archbishop Wing, the flying dude. What the heck is a plant monster doing in the episodes that revolve around winged monsters? It just doesn't make any sense. At least there's some good music to be had. This wouldn't even be the last time they would recycle a plot from the previous show, as a few episodes later, the Batman episode from Kamen Rider is regurgitated.
Master! それだけでなく、風見四郎が朝子を殺した証拠を持っている。
それだけでなく本郷武が博士を殺した証拠も持っている。
この娘を見ろ。見ろ。カタツムリがゆっくりとこの娘の肉体を支配してゆく。
本郷、この娘の首筋を見ろ。見ろ。ビルスがゆっくりとこの娘の肉体を支配してゆく。
I had a couple contenders for favorite episodes, which include the ones with Junko and her crazed stalker, and the episode where Shiro is unable to control his strength due to the Destron bullet shot in his head. Ultimately, I decided to go with episodes 20 and 21, Destron's Operation Conquer Shikoku, and The Double Riders Live. This duology sees Destron trying to conquer Shikoku, requiring Shiro and gang to travel. I love travel episodes, as it allows us to see some new scenery, something modern Toku shows severely lack. These episodes are written like one great spy thriller.
サソリ座は黒い星アジトにご案内しましょう。
There's a fight sequence on a cruise ship. We've got some great music. Hongo and Ichimonji return as a participation trophy.
この地球上のどっかに必ず生きてます。
そのメダルが何よりの証拠だな。
Cool monsters with Syringe Spider and Guillotine Saurus.
そろそろコントロールビールスが貴様の体の中で効いてくる頃だ。
It was just a fantastic set of episodes. Truly, V3's finest. The movie. There's a theatrical film. You should know the drill at this point, as its plot is pretty much what you would expect from a movie version of the show. A scientist makes a discovery, the villains want it, so they attack him and his family to get it, leaving our hero to protect them.
回って。
Several of the monsters from the show come back for a grandiose finale. It's as basic as you can get, but it does have a few enjoyable bits. Not always for good, however. I do like the movie's exclusive monster, Cannon Buffalo.
俺の名は大砲バファロー。風見しろ。四国には行かさんぞ。あいつの仕業だ。
It was cool to have Hongo and Ichimonji back, even though they just show up out of the blue.
俺たちはデストロンの野望を潰すためにオーストラリアからやってきたんだ。デストロン、俺たち仮面ライダー3人の力で貴様たちを叩き潰してやる。
On the other hand, one of the monsters has a piece fly off of him in the midst of battle, and I don't think it was supposed to. I guess it could have been worse. The Blu-ray. Discotech has given us a pretty solid Blu-ray. We've got the slipcase, which you probably notice is jacked up from the green screen. The case. Discs in a tray. Note, the movie is not included. The video quality is definitely a step up from the DVDs, though sometimes I was confused as to whether or not I was watching an actual high-definition transfer on some episodes. There was nothing inherently wrong to say they weren't, it's just that sometimes the video appeared a bit faded out compared to what I was expecting.
シロさん、会長と私のことは心配しないで。
風見しろ。よく聞け。得するけ。貴様が持っていった解毒剤のカプセルを返せば二人の命を助けてやろう。
やったぞ。奴の死体を探せ。
その必要はない。私はここにいるぞ。
俺たちで今度こそ始末してやる。
The audio does leave a lot to be desired. I had to turn my receiver up quite a bit from the norm due to how low it came out.
僕一人で？
ああ、ぼやの名前は剛って言うんだろ。だから強いんじゃないか。
It was fortunately nowhere near as bad as that one G-Bon episode I talked about in that review. Still, it could have been better. I only noticed a handful of errors in the subtitles, with the most standout being this.
デストロンの翼軍団に狙われる人たちは二度と生き返っては来ないんですよ。
My only gripe with the subs is there were a couple lines I feel could have been translated differently, as they came across confusing with the way they were worded. There was one moment in episode 41 where the subs seemed to be displayed on screen before the event they were coming from even occurred, which made things confusing for a moment.
疲労で働けなくなったというだけで死刑と称して殺されるのだ。
The Blu-ray has several bonus features, which includes a 3-part interview from the Japanese Blu-ray release between Miyauchi and V3 suit actor.
で、僕が歌いましたら、なんかちょっと音程がおかしいよって言うんで、水木さんちょっと教えてあげてよ。赤い赤いって水木さんが歌うと僕が赤い赤い違うよ。
An interview with Miyauchi from the Generation Kakaider DVDs.
お芝居ということよりも、現場をとにかく和やかにしてくださる、そういった中ではやっぱりスタッフキャストをまとめてくださるすべての親父さん役。
And a roundtable conference with Miyauchi and several staff members about V3 when the DVD was going to hit Japan back in the early 2000s.
仮面ライダーやるまで僕は二輪なんたらほとんどまたがったことがないんじゃないかと思う。
でもオーディションの時なんかいやオートバイはもう任せてくださいって
いやこれはね本当に俳優さんってみんなそうだけど
高校生まだ17歳でしたから高校生なんですなんて話をしてじゃあ失礼しますって帰ってきたんですね。そしたら決まりましたのでってお話だったので。
There's the typical essay that provides a plethora of great information on the show's production. Commercials for bicycle and toys, a preview for the series, and a photo gallery that features some pretty nice concept art. As already mentioned, V3 was a significant step up from Kamen Rider. I ended up enjoying this series far more than I envisioned based on my experience to the first series. Thus, I am going to give Kamen Rider V3 a nice 4 out of 5 grown-ups in spandex. There are a couple of areas that could have been tightened up to help improve the show, but for being the template to what a Kamen Rider series should entail, it was a wonderful starting point. Check it out. Until next time, bye!
Hello up there! I seem to have fallen down a cliff. I'm still alive, but I'm very badly injured. I think my legs might be broken.